Bulb flowers, the hidden gems of your garden, hold their own mysteries. They sleep beneath the soil, only to awaken with vibrant colors and fragrances, marking the arrival of spring. Imagine, if you will, a world beneath our feet, where life sleeps quietly, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge. This is the world of bulb flowers, a world filled with tulips, daffodils, hyacinths, and countless other varieties, each with its own unique charm and story. Bulb flowers are truly a global phenomenon. Tulips, for instance, were first cultivated in the Ottoman Empire, adorning the gardens of sultans with their vibrant colors. They later made their way to the Netherlands, where they sparked a frenzy known as tulip mania in the 17th century. Daffodils, on the other hand, have their roots in the Mediterranean region but have since spread their joyous yellow blooms across the globe. Hyacinths, with their intoxicating fragrance, originate from the Eastern Mediterranean, from Turkey to Lebanon. Despite their diverse origins, bulb flowers share a common life cycle that's nothing short of miraculous. As the chill of winter sets in, they retreat into their bulbs deep beneath the soil. Here, they lie dormant, conserving their energy, waiting for the warmth of spring to coax them out of their slumber. When spring finally arrives, these bulb flowers are among the first to greet it, bursting forth with a riot of colors and fragrances. It's as if they're throwing a party to celebrate the end of winter and the beginning of a new season of growth. But how do they know when to wake up? How do they know when it's time to push through the soil and reach for the sun? Well, that's where the mystery lies. Inside each bulb is a biological clock that senses the warming temperatures and increasing daylight of spring. This triggers a chemical reaction that kickstarts the growing process, leading to the stunning spring blooms we all know and love. It's a journey that starts with a humble bulb, hidden beneath the soil, and ends with a spectacular flower that captivates the senses. Each bulb carries within it the promise of a beautiful bloom, waiting patiently for the right time to fulfill that promise. And so the secret life of bulb flowers begins beneath the soil, ready to burst forth when spring arrives. But what prompts these sleeping beauties to awaken and paint our gardens with a riot of colors? It's time to delve into the science behind spring blooms. Bulb flowers are like nature's alarm clocks. They're set to go off when the conditions are just right, heralding the arrival of spring. But what's the science behind this process? Let's explore. Bulbs are self-contained units, packed with everything a plant needs to grow. They are essentially the plant's version of a packed lunch. Each bulb is a food storage organ carrying enough nutrients to sustain the plant through winter and fuel its spring growth. Think of the bulb as an underground pantry. When you plant a bulb, you're essentially burying a plant's lunchbox. The plant, in its dormant state, waits patiently for the right time to tuck into its meal and start growing. The best time to plant bulbs is in the fall. This is because bulbs need a period of cold dormancy to trigger their internal biological clock. This clock tells them when it's time to start growing and blooming. Imagine the bulb as a hibernating bear. It settles down for a long winter sleep, and when the conditions are right, it wakes up, ready to burst into life. The period of cold dormancy is like the bear's hibernation. It's a necessary part of the plant's life cycle. So why do bulbs bloom in spring? The answer lies in the plant's genetic coding. Bulbs are programmed to bloom when the days start getting longer and the soil temperatures begin to rise. This usually happens in the spring, just like how a caterpillar instinctively knows when to transform into a butterfly. The bulb knows when to burst into bloom. This is nature's way of ensuring that the plant flowers at the right time for pollination and seed production. But how does a bulb know when it's spring? Well, it doesn't have a calendar or a smartphone to check the date. Instead, it senses the changing temperature and daylight hours. The bulb's growth is triggered by a combination of warming soil and increasing daylight hours. As the earth absorbs more sunlight, the soil temperature rises. This warmth stimulates the bulb to break dormancy and begin growing. Similarly, as the days gradually lengthen, the increasing light triggers the bulb's internal clock. This clock tells the plant that it's time to start growing and preparing to bloom. Once the growth process begins, the bulb uses the nutrients stored within its layers to produce a stem, leaves, and finally, a beautiful flower. This is why it's essential to plant bulbs at the right depth. The deeper the bulb is planted, the longer the stem has to grow to reach the surface and bloom. In the grand scheme of nature's cycle, bulb flowers play a vital role as the heralds of spring. They're among the first to bloom, adding color and life to our gardens after the long gray winter. Their vibrant blossoms are a signal to other plants and animals that spring has arrived, setting off a chain of growth and renewal across the ecosystem. But remember, not all bulbs are created equal. Some bloom in early spring, some in late spring, and others in summer. This staggered blooming allows for a continuous display of color and beauty in your garden from spring to fall. So, when you're planning your garden, consider the blooming times of different bulbs. Mix and match early, mid, and late bloomers to create a garden that's always in bloom. In the end, the science of spring blooms is all about timing. Each bulb is a tiny time capsule programmed to wake up and bloom at the perfect moment, and when that moment comes, it transforms from a humble underground pantry into a vibrant, living masterpiece. As the heralds of spring, bulb flowers follow nature's clock, emerging when conditions are just right. Now that we've unraveled the science, let's get our hands dirty. It's time to plant some bulbs. First, let's talk about selecting bulbs. The key to a vibrant spring garden lies in selecting healthy, high-quality bulbs. Look for bulbs that are firm, free from visible damage, and have a healthy skin. Larger bulbs will typically yield more robust blooms, so don't shy away from those that look a little plumper. Next, consider the type of bulb flower you want to plant. Tulips, daffodils, and hyacinths are popular choices, each offering a unique burst of color and form. Tulips, with their elegant, cup-shaped flowers, are a classic choice for a spring garden. Daffodils, on the other hand, are known for their bright yellow blooms and are incredibly resilient. Hyacinths offer a fragrant option with densely packed star-shaped flowers that create an impressive display. Now, let's move on to the crucial part: preparing your garden for planting. The first step is to prepare the soil. Bulb flowers thrive in well-drained soil, so it's essential to ensure your garden has good drainage. If your soil is heavy clay, consider amending it with compost or organic matter to improve its structure and drainage. Next, you'll want to dig a hole for each bulb. The depth of the hole should be about 3 times the height of the bulb. A handy rule of thumb is to plant the bulb deeper in colder climates and shallower in warmer ones. This protects the bulb from freezing in winter and from drying out in summer. Now comes the fun part: planting the bulbs. Place the bulb in the hole with the pointy end facing up. If you're unsure which end is the pointy one, don't worry. Bulbs are pretty smart and will find their way up even if planted upside down. However, planting them the right way up gives them a head start. Once you've placed the bulb in the hole, backfill the soil, covering the bulb completely. Be careful not to pack the soil too tightly. You want to leave some room for the roots to grow easily. After planting, give the bulbs a good watering. This helps settle the soil and provides the bulbs with the moisture they need to start growing. However, don't overwater, as this can lead to bulb rot. Now that your bulbs are snug in the ground, it's time for a little patience. Bulbs require a period of cold dormancy before they can produce their stunning spring blooms. This means they'll stay underground during the winter, gathering energy for their big spring debut. During this time, it's important to keep the soil moderately moist but not waterlogged. A layer of mulch can help maintain soil moisture and temperature, providing a protective blanket for your bulbs during the cold winter months. As winter fades and the first signs of spring emerge, keep an eye out for the first green shoots poking through the soil. This is a sign that your bulbs are ready to burst into bloom. Continue to water as needed, but be careful not to overwater, as spring rains may provide plenty of moisture. And there you have it. Planting bulbs might seem like a bit of a waiting game, but the payoff is worth every moment. In the spring, your garden will transform into a dazzling display of color and beauty thanks to these tiny, unassuming bulbs. Remember, bulb flowers aren't just for spring. Many bulbs bloom in summer and fall, offering a continuous display of color throughout the gardening season. So why not try planting a variety of bulbs to create a garden that's alive with color from spring to fall? With these steps, you're ready to transform your garden with a kaleidoscope of spring blooms. To ensure your garden is a blooming success, here are some expert tips and common pitfalls to avoid. First off, let's talk about the timing. Bulb flowers, like tulips and daffodils, are typically planted in the fall, as they require a period of cold dormancy to bloom. However, don't just toss them in the ground when the leaves start to fall. Wait until the soil is about 60 degrees Fahrenheit or cooler. This usually occurs when nighttime temperatures consistently stay between 40 and 50 degrees. Now let's move on to choosing your bulbs. Selecting high-quality bulbs can be the difference between a garden that's bursting with color and one that's lackluster. Look for bulbs that are firm and plump, not soft or shriveled. And remember, size does matter in this case. Larger bulbs often produce more robust blooms. Once you've got your bulbs, it's time to think about location. Most bulb flowers prefer a spot with full sun and well-draining soil. If your garden tends to hold water, consider planting your bulbs in raised beds or containers to prevent rot. Now the part you've been waiting for, planting. As a general rule of thumb, plant your bulbs at a depth 3 times their height. So if you have a 2-inch tulip bulb, you'll want to plant it 6 inches deep. Make sure to plant the bulb pointy side up. If you're not sure which end is the top, look for the side with the remnants of roots. That's the bottom. Water your bulbs right after planting. This helps to trigger their growth, but don't water them too much after that. Overwatering can lead to bulb rot. Instead, rely on the fall and winter rains to provide the necessary moisture. Now, onto some common mistakes to avoid. One pitfall many gardeners fall into is planting their bulbs too close together. If bulbs are planted too close, they can compete for resources and not bloom as well. A good rule of thumb is to plant bulbs about 2 to 3 times their width apart. So if your bulb is 1 inch wide, plant it 2 to 3 inches from its neighbors. Another common mistake is neglecting post-bloom care. After your bulbs have bloomed, you might be tempted to tidy up your garden by cutting back the foliage. But hold off on reaching for those pruning shears. The leaves need to remain in place until they've yellowed and died back naturally. This process allows the bulb to store energy for the next growing season. And lastly, don't forget about pests. Squirrels, voles, and other critters love to dig up and munch on bulbs. To protect your bulbs, consider layering chicken wire over the soil after planting. You can also try planting bulbs that are known to be less tasty to pests, like daffodils and alliums. With these tips and tricks, you're well on your way to a flourishing spring garden. Now we want to hear from you. Do you have any bulb planting stories or questions you'd like to share? There's nothing quite like the camaraderie and shared wisdom that sprouts from a community of garden enthusiasts. And we believe that every gardening journey, be it the triumphant tales of tulips or the hard-earned lessons from hyacinths, is a story worth sharing. Imagine, if you will, a garden of shared knowledge, where every gardener, from the seasoned pro to the budding enthusiast, sows seeds of wisdom that others can cultivate. Each shared experience is a seedling of knowledge that can help another gardener's bulbs bloom a little brighter, a little bolder come next spring. Perhaps you've had a particularly successful season with your daffodils, and you're eager to spread the joy of those golden blooms. Or maybe you've stumbled upon a unique planting technique that has your tulips turning heads in the neighborhood. Whatever your story, we'd love to hear it, and so would the rest of our gardening community. But it's not just about the triumphs. We know that gardening, like life, is full of trials and tribulations. Maybe you've battled bulb-eating pests or grappled with unpredictable weather. Maybe your bulbs just didn't bloom as expected and you're scratching your head, wondering why. Don't keep those questions to yourself. Share them here, in our community. You never know who might have the answer you've been searching for or who might learn from your experiences. And of course, we can't forget about the visual feast that is a garden in full bloom. We'd love to see your photos of your bulb flowers in all their vibrant glory. From the first sprout to the final bloom, your photos paint a picture of the gardening journey that words alone cannot capture. Whether you're a seasoned gardener with a green thumb, a beginner testing the waters, or even someone who simply appreciates the beauty of a blooming garden, your stories, questions, and photos are seeds of inspiration and learning for everyone in our community. Engagement is the soil from which a strong community grows. Let's cultivate a garden of shared experiences, where the joy of gardening is not just in the blooming flowers, but also in the shared journey of nurturing those blooms from bulbs to blossoms. So go ahead, share your stories, your questions, your photos. Let's turn this comment section into a vibrant garden of shared experiences and wisdom. Let's nurture this community garden together, helping each other's gardens grow and bloom in ways we never imagined possible. And remember, there's no such thing as a silly question or a story too small. Every question is a chance to learn, every story a chance to inspire. Every photo is a snapshot of a moment in your gardening journey that can spark joy and inspiration in others. We're all gardeners here, united by our love for the earth and the magic that happens when a tiny bulb transforms into a vibrant bloom. And when we share our experiences, our triumphs and trials, our questions and knowledge, we're not just growing our gardens, we're growing as gardeners. There's a certain magic in the sharing of stories, the answering of questions, and the showcasing of our garden's beauty. It's a magic that transforms a group of individuals into a community of garden enthusiasts united by a shared passion for bulb flowers. And that's the magic we hope to cultivate here. So let's get sharing, let's get asking, let's get showcasing, let's grow this community garden together. Remember, every gardener has a story to tell. We can't wait to hear yours. Before we say goodbye, we have a small request. Dive deeper into the world of gardening by subscribing to our channel. Here, you'll find a bounty of tips and tricks to make your garden flourish. If you found this video helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your friends and fellow garden enthusiasts. And for your daily dose of green inspiration, be sure to follow us on our social media platforms. Join our gardening community today and let's grow together. Until next time, happy gardening.